I don't even wear a tie. On some
Yeah,
occasions, you'll see me in a tie, but most of the time you
I
won't.
took my jacket. Yeah, I don't like tie, but it's cultural things, I think.
Well, I think you look good either way. Tie or no tie, you're styling.
No, I tie. I don't like tie really.
Well, Sabri Atman, the founder and president, is that your title? The Seyfo Center.
Director, I think. Yeah,
Director works better.
yeah,
Dabrono, right, of the
yeah.
Seyfo Center.
Founder is the important. Yeah.
Oh, tell us your story. I mean, um, how'd you get started in this? A lot of people who are listeners or viewers, they don't know anything about Seyfo. They don't know anything about, well, so a lot of people are interested in the Middle East who subscribe to the channel, but a lot of people may not know much about the indigenous people or just, the history, especially the recent history and all the political ramifications it has. What's your story? How did you get started? And, where do you come from?
Yeah, I was born in a village named Arbo, which is located in southeastern Turkey today. And when I was born there, we had 70 families in our village and 7 churches, and we were Christians. And we didn't know anything about our nationality. We didn't speak Turkish. The first teacher that came to our village and started to learn Turkish, he said, this language that you speak, it's infidels language. Forget about it and learn Turkish and be proud to be Turkish. And whenever we went to school, we had to say a chant, I am a Turk. I am proud to be Turk. When I grow up, I will sacrifice my life for Turkishness. This kind of education system
Mhm.
we went through. And we had churches. People, they were poor, but they were sharing almost everything together. They were happy, difficult life. And we didn't like Muslims.
Mhm.
And, uh, and this, to not like Muslims and to speak negative towards them made us more a Christian to protect our Christianity. And we could hear from the elderly people their experience, how they suffer, and many times they trust their neighbors and other Muslims, but all the time they were disappointed. And some people, elderly people, they were telling stories to each other. What happened to them? What happened to their grandparents and other Christian, other villages, etc. And that Muslim, they are without mercy. And as a child, I grew up with this kind of settings. And I was in my village until I was 9, 10 years old. And from there, I went together with my teacher and his wife to their city far away. It was Adapazarı, close to Istanbul.
Mhm.
And they convinced my father and they told them if Fabrice, if we are allowed to take him and stay 1 year with us, he will learn Turkish. I went, I was for 1 year there. And in this city, they used to call their animals infidels, and it was, and the Christians.
Mhm.
And I was the first Christian that these people saw in their life. And they were kind of looking at me as stranger. And this is the first time they saw a Christian. And they used to call them infidels. But I was kind of one of their children. It was nothing different with me. And I was there for 1 year and I learned a lot, many questions. And from there, I couldn't share this question to anybody. Why these people kind of taking me to cemetery and telling that my grandparents, they were living there and they show me some bones. I couldn't understand this. But when I was about 16, 17 years old, moved to Istanbul, learned something what happened to Christians in this city, Armenians. They were killed and they were showing me their bones. And they didn't distinguish between Armenians, Assyrians, because we were infidels and they were my grandparents. But there were many elderly people around me. I could hear their stories, telling me very sad stories that happened to them. And many Assyrians, we grow up like that. But the first time that I started to work to raise awareness about the Assyrian genocide, it was year 2000. Something happened there. A Turkish journalist, he went to Mat Mariam, to the priest of Syriac Orthodox Church in Diyarbakir. They conducted an interview with Father Yusuf Akbulut. And they asked him, tell us, is it true that the Armenians were killed around the Diyarbakir region? Was it genocide? He said, no. Not only Armenians, but also Assyrians also were killed during the genocide. It was extermination towards all Christian population around the Diyarbakir region and to Rabdi.
And so Diyarbakir, that's, southeast Turkey, kind of north of Iraq, Iraq-Syria border area. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very close to Rabdi. One of the largest cities.
Not to interrupt you, but just for my listeners, you talk about going and learning Turkish, even though you're from the country called Turkey. So what was your native language? You're a native Aramaic speaker, is that right?
I spoke Aramaic, and everybody spoke Aramaic, and we couldn't speak any other languages. And only elderly people, maybe Kurdish, Arabic, Turkish, very broken, if there were some, very broken Turkish. And kind of Turkey, it was on the Turkish border, but as a state, they didn't have much control in this region. And we were kind of living in a feudal society. And so in Adapazarı, with my teacher, I learned some Turkish. Back to Diyarbakir.
Yeah, back.
And then the day after, and they put the picture of this priest in Diyarbakir, and they wrote something in Turkish very bad, the traitors among us, saying the head of the largest Turkish newspaper, Hürriyet, and he is saying that it was a genocide. And it was very bad. They portrayed him with the article, very bad person. And he's very nice person, Father Yusuf Akbulut. And short after, they took him to the court. And it was a known court case in Diyarbakir. And many members of the European Parliament, Swedish Parliament, other places they went. And Father Akbulut didn't speak much. And at the court, he said, I am a Christian. I am a priest. I can't lie. And you are telling me the genocide didn't occur. Tell me, 1915, they were Chaldean, they were Assyrian, they were Armenian, all around us. And now they are gone. Where are they? Tell me, yes, it was a genocide. And even in the court, he insisted, and they didn't know what to say, but it was kind of a lot of protests in Europe from the European Parliament. After a few months, he was free, but very hard life. They gave him very hard life in Diyarbakir. At that time, I was living in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
And I told myself, this father, the genocide issue is a taboo subject in Turkey. They don't want to hear it, to hear about it. And they call us liars. And they say these Armenians, it's American imperialism, etc., is behind them. And but this father, Yusuf Akbulut, is in Diyarbakir, and he has some kids, and they took him to the court, but he was defending the truth. If he can do it in Turkey to defend the truth, to show how a true man is, a Christian person could be, and what I am doing in the Netherlands, why I am not more active. And then I start to take video or radio cassette tape and go to elderly people, ask them, can you tell me something about your life? What happened to you? Have you heard about Seyfo? And most people, they were asking questions, what are you going to do with this? No, I don't want to talk. And I went to many people. I could read that they wanted to talk, but it was something could stop them. They were not telling me. And there I found something very important. I noticed that these people, they were traumatized.
Yeah.
And there are some symptoms for trauma. They didn't trust anybody. They were telling me, what are you going to do with this? How can we trust you that you are a good person? How can we trust about your intention? Second symptom of trauma. They were kind of feeling guilty, ashamed. Maybe things happened to them. They were not very comfortable to speak about. And there, my name is Sabro. And Sabro means to have patience. I said, I need to have patience. And I insisted also, went to these people, forget about my camera, video, etc. I was asking, how are you? How are you doing today? How is your health? Until I gained their trust. And then I start to speak to many, conduct interview with more than 100 people. And these people, they were telling me what happened to them. And for example, one of those people was 107 years old, living in grown up in Germany, close to the Netherlands on the border. One day he called me, he said, what are you doing? I said, nothing. He take your camera, come to me, I will talk. When I went to him, he said, Sabro, tell me how many eyes I have. I said, hello, uncle, you have two eyes. He said, in front of these two eyes, they raped my mother. In front of these two eyes, they killed my younger brother. And he started to cry. And, but what he wanted, and those people who did crime to him, to our people, just to say, we did very bad things to you, we feel sorry. And he said, then I could forgive them because I am a Christian person, I can't hate. Also hate will not help anything. So I start to speak to many, interview many other elderly people, and then went some places, give speeches, and I noticed that this is an open wound among our Assyrian community, and to be healed, you need to speak about. And I went to many places. I could hear people. Then I start to educate myself. I start to read many books, and all these books taught me that my knowledge was very limited, and still my knowledge about what happened in the past is very limited. Every single day I try to learn something. And year 2003, with I spoke to many people, Assyrians and non-Assyrians, and I'm the founder of the Assyrian Genocide Research in Europe called Seyfo Center, and we have branches in different countries in Europe. We start to arrange conferences at the European Parliament, at the House of Commons in Britain, and Sweden, Greece, Armenia, many other places. And since that, I didn't stop to raise awareness, to work for this. And what forced me, what pushed me for this, because I think the legacy of the genocide, of crime against humanity, like Seyfo, the Assyrian genocide, I think this is the reason that our people lost their home. We are homeless. We are in Australia, we are in America, we are in Canada, we are in Europe, but we became refugees in our own country, that we were there for 6,000-7,000 years. And we barely communicate with our language anymore. The young generation go through very painful assimilation process, and we don't have strong Assyrian organizations, and here and there we are weak because of the genocide that happened to us and affected our identity, destroy our culture, many other things. Also, the perpetrators still, they denied what they did, and this also bothered me very much. Like the Assyrian survivor, that he was 107 years old, when he said, if they feel sorry, if they apologize, I'm ready to forgive. But if they don't feel sorry, if they don't ask for forgiveness, what I'm going to forgive, I don't know. And it is the same for me. I mean, as Assyrian, we don't hate, and hate will not help. And we don't want to take revenge. Also, we are not after revenge. Also, the only thing that we, as human beings, I think the best way to prevent future crimes against humanity, to speak about the past genocide and to draw a lesson from them.
You know, it's a really interesting thing, because it's not like it's the first time that anything like this has happened in human history, but it's close enough to our own history that we can still talk about it. We can talk to some eyewitnesses. I mean, you know, I don't know if any, I'm sure some still survive, but probably not many these days. And it's something that predates what happened in Europe. Now, I have a lot of Turkish friends, and they would probably say that, well, this is a moment of war, and if the Russians won, we'd be talking about, you know, all the atrocities done to the Turks. And I don't know that that's much of a strong response, namely because here in the United States, I mean, we have a history of dealing with the indigenous people here. And it's not cut and dry. It's not good guy, bad guy, but it is a more powerful force dealing with a less powerful force quite often. And through much of our history, we have, we being Americans, we have a history of massacring different Native American communities, and that's part of our history. We also have allies with many Native American tribes, and you know, many of them participate in government and actually help form some of our initial founding principles. You know, with the Iroquois League, and things like this. But all that to say, it's a complicated history, and it's good to know what the other side thinks. But that doesn't mean, okay, just because it's 2022, that I can't look back and say what happened to the Native Americans in any situation was horrible. And if I had any ancestry that took part in it, actually, I probably had the opposite from what I understand about, like, my family went and lived with the Native Americans, not quite Dances with Wolves sort of thing, but something similar. I have a distant uncle who went and lived with the Lakota in South Dakota, and they treated him as though he was a member of the Pawnee tribe because he was from where they were located, a different tribe. But all that to say, who knows? I'm sure I have some kind of ancestry that had some kind of negative consequence, even if it was just in maybe pushing people onto reservations. I don't know, but as an American, I'm willing to take that identity on and to be sorry for it, and to say that this, whether I'm guilty, and I'm not guilty. I grew up I was born in the 70s. So, like, what do I have to do with that? But okay, I'm living the legacy of that. And we're all living in this world from that legacy. I mean, just like where is everybody in Hakkari today? Where is everybody, in Mardin? Well, there's still people there, but and these are, for those listening, those are states or provinces. How's Turkey organized? State or province of Turkey. And in my own experience, I can lament and really feel bad about it. So much so that, I've dedicated a large part of my life, my scholarship toward the survival of indigenous culture, of local culture, whether it's language, food, customs, stories, and myths, folklore. And so it's meaningful for me. But I want to know, what's the Turkish side of the story during this period? And, why bother denying it? Like, it's hard to understand, given that so many researchers have now, let's say, pressed the issue with different politicians, both in the West, mostly in the Western world, right? In Europe, in the United States, Australia, New Zealand, to recognize it. But okay, you recognize it. Great. Like, that doesn't bring anybody back. That doesn't preserve any property rights or things like that. What's at stake for call it denial, or presenting a counter argument, right? To say, well, listen, this is a complicating factor and collateral damage to a war situation. It seems to me like that's focused on 1915 and not, what starts in 1895 and continues on and is ratcheted up during Seyfo. And we should say, for the audience listening, when we say this word Seyfo, this is the Aramaic word or the Syriac word for sword. And when Malfono teacher or professor Sabri, when he says Seyfo, he's talking about the period of this genocidal action in Turkey, toward the end of the First World War, right? 1915, 1917. So, what's their side of the story? And, is there room for dialogue, and, like, why the hard line? It's a little hard to understand, given where we are here in the West, and we can reflect on our own history. Whether we had any sort of ancestors involved or not doesn't matter. We've taken on this identity of being an American, of being a citizen of the United States. It's my history, whether I was there, whether my people were there in a different part of the country altogether.
Yeah. Thank you. I am doing my PhD at the University of Texas at Dallas. Also, I am doing TA. I'm teaching about American U.S. Civil War, U.S. survey. And last week, I have about 64 students. And last week, I was showing together, we were watching with students, the resistance of Cherokee tribal nation. And we speak about what happened to Native Americans and how they did resistance. And we speak very free at the university, or at one of the American university. Nobody says anything. It's part of the education system. And I am sure In many other universities also, it's free. You can talk about the past. It doesn't bother you. It is like you learn from the past. We educate the past to build a better future. But do you think it's possible to go to Turkey and to speak, let's say I'm wrong, to speak about the Assyrian genocide in Istanbul or in Ankara? I don't think. It is a taboo subject. They don't want to talk about. And then why they deny this? And I have a book by accident. It's written in Turkish, and they are Kurdish author. They wrote a book about what happened in the Diyarbakir region, and in the book says largely of the Kurds, large number of the Kurds participated on the killing of the Christian during the First World War. This is the Kurds saying this. And there are many Kurds also, they admit, they say, yes, we participated. It is a shame that our ancestors participated on the killing of the Christians. And we wish they didn't do these things. While there are some others, they deny. But what is the reason Turkey denies? There are a few reasons, I think. One of the reasons could be still they have the same mentality, genocidal mentality. They still they are not mature enough, like Germany, like US, to say, yes, for example, you and I, maybe in our life too, we did a lot of mistakes, a lot of wrong. And the best way to not insist, say, I did everything in my life very good. This is wrong. That shows that we are not mature. If we do anything wrong, maybe the best way to say, yeah, I did, it was wrong, but I have time to correct my wrongdoing. Unfortunately, Turkey, still they denied the genocide of 1915. And one of the reasons, unfortunately, still the genocidal mentality exists in Turkey. When it's the circumstances allows them, they can do it against other people the same. They can use it, Seyfo sword against the Kurds and other minorities because the mentality is there. And second, for example, Germany, they recognize the Holocaust and also pay compensation, condemn the Nazi, Hitler. And if you go to Berlin, you will not see any statue of Adolf Hitler. But if you go to Turkey, and the architect of the genocide, Talat Pasha, Enver Pasha, Cemal Pasha, the governor of Diyarbakir that organized the killing of the Christian Armenians, Assyrians there, you see, they gave name to followers, streets, schools, kind of they are heroes. They are proud of them because they consider them their founders of Turkey, Republic of Turkey. And another reason is, and while Christian, we are saying they are similar to Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, he killed more than 6 million people, but in Turkey too, 1914, the population of Turkey was 14.5 million people. 4.5 of them, they were Christians. This makes 33% of the population in Turkey, they were Christians. Nowadays, if you go and do your research, you will find 0.1% Christian. The rest, they are killed or they are deported. So, and Turkey, if you go and do your research in Turkey, you will find also the most wealthy people in Istanbul, in Ankara, in Diyarbakir. Their richness, wealthiness, they came when they were killing, deporting the Christians, they took their properties also. They became very rich, very wealthy in Turkey. And these people, now they are in government and they are they have power in Turkey. They are not comfortable when we speak about the past and remind them that this has happened in Turkey. And their thesis is don't make a lot of noise. It was during the First World War. We feel sorry. There were many people. Also, there were many Turks and many Muslims. They were killed. But the difference was the Christian genocide towards Armenian, Assyrian Greeks. It was organized. And they are scholars. They are Professor Kaner Akçam is now he is Turkish. He published more than 25 books about the Armenian genocide. He is at UCLA in Los Angeles now, and he showed all the documents how this genocide was organized in Turkey. And Professor Akçam, he is American citizen now. He can travel all around the world, but not in Turkey.
Right.
Not in Turkey. And his mother lives in Turkey. Unfortunately, he can't go and see his mother. This is the problem in Turkey. We wish them, I hope and I believe, one day Turkey will start to respect human rights and democracy also will be there, because Turkish people also deserve to live in peace and harmony with other people and have democracy. But so far, democratic principle doesn't exist in Turkey. And this is one of the reasons also Turkey has many, many other problems as well.
You know, I was told by an Armenian priest many years ago that there were a lot of heroic Turkish families who helped save Christians during that period. And I think one thing that gets lost sometimes in this conversation is, this isn't monolithic, right? It's not like everyone who identifies as a Turk or who thinks himself a Turk or as a Turkish citizen is on one side, and everyone who's an Armenian, Assyrian, Syriac, Greek, or Pontic Greek, or whatever the Bulgar community that suffered during this period is on the other. And I think that there's always nuance to the story. Just like you mentioned with Professor Akçam, what sort of pushback or movement is there within the Turkish community today to sort of reconcile their past and advance as a nation?
It is very important to not label all Kurds as a bad people. To generalize, it's very bad things to do. Really, there are always good, bad people among all nations. And there are very good Turks and Kurds also. While this happens in front of their eyes, they risk their life and they were protecting the Christians. Maybe the number was not that huge, but they were both Turks and Kurds. All respect to them. And I think there are many young generations. They are more educated. There are more books published in Turkey. And there are many scholars now, Turkish scholars, Kurdish. They are in Europe. They are in America. Some of them, they are poisoned with denialism ideology, but some of them also, they try to read some and listen to some of us and say, really, what happened? Maybe we are wrong, and this number is growing. And I feel I have people, I know people in Turkey, I communicate with them, and this gives me hope that Turkey also will change, and they will not hide the truth forever. They will not be able to do it.
Well, what's your relationship then, with your call it home country, if we could say that, with the Turkish state today. And you mentioned Professor Akcan, who can't go back and see Akcam, who can't see his mother for this reason. I mean, is it, were there any complications for you, when you started to speak about this?
I have a rock from my village. I have it at home. Wherever I got it for almost 25 years ago. And always my village where I was born is in my mind. And I hope once in my life I will be able to go and visit this village, because my roots, they are there. I belong there. And this rock gives me a lot of power, motivation, everything. I can cry with this rock. I can laugh. I can joke. When I am sad, I take this rock in my hands. Honestly, it helps me a lot. And but for me, I'm not able to go back to this village for the same reason. And in the past, I got a lot of threats, and it is kind of difficult for me. It's impossible to go and visit because of the work that I'm doing. And I am not the only one. Professor Taner Akçam is not the only one. There are many, many other people also, not only for the genocide. I know also many Turks, they left for other reasons. Turkey, because they don't feel they have any future for them, for their kids in Turkey. Because Turkey from outside, I don't know how you see it, but I speak Turkish fluently. I follow things. It's kind of no rules, no laws, no democracy. When you criticize, for example, President Erdogan, you can be disappeared, you can be in jail. One of the Kurdish political party leaders is in jail for 7 years. And there are about 300, 400,000 people in Turkish jail. And there are kind of some people, they are a minister position. We know they are drug dealers. They have very strong connection with mafia. And while people, they suffer financially a lot, they live in luxury and this stuff. Even Turkish people are going through very, very difficult process nowadays in Turkey. And not because of the genocide, because of any other things. And I think the genocide, to recognize the past, to deal with the past, is very important. And I hope Turkey, when it's a democratic state, to respect human rights. Like in US, we were watching a movie, Cherokee Nation or Tribe. We can also watch a movie about the Armenian Assyrian genocide and discuss if there are different opinions, if there are any arguments saying, yes, it was a war, it was because this war where many people, they were killed. But then we have other things concrete to say. Look, in Turkish constitutions, says everybody lives in Turkey is a Turk and should be proud to be Turk. And there are 20 million Kurds living in Turkey. How about them? There are other minorities. How about them? How about the Assyrian culture? Aramaic, it's one of the oldest languages. How much protection we have from the state of Turkey. This is before Turks came to Anatolia. We were living there for 5,000, 6,000 years.
Yeah.
Like Americans, there are people, they came from Germany, the Netherlands, from Ireland, and they took the country and destroyed the Native Americans. And now it's a very similar story. We are indigenous people of Mesopotamia. Yeah. And these people, they came from other places. destroy our language, our culture. They took our land and they destroy our identity. And now they deny everything. This is open wound in our heart. And we want this wound to be healed. And we want these people to say, let's say, discuss, let's say openly, you don't risk anything. Come to your village, come to Turkey. You can speak about it at the Texas University. Come to one of the universities that we have in Istanbul, in Ankara. Speak freely about it. And Turkey is far away from doing these things.
Yeah, I think the present position of the the government, you call it denying the history or reinterpreting the history at best. I don't think it's good for the country. I mean, Turkey is one of my favorite countries, and as you said, there's so much parallel between Turkey and the United States. There's a group of people who settled in a region and they met the local inhabitants. Sometimes there's intermarriage, sometimes there's hostility. And this is several hundred years in the making until just over 100 years ago when there's this nationalist fervor. I mean, the Ottoman Empire was very diverse, and it didn't seem to be the same kind of issue that it was maybe 100 years ago with the rise of call it the nationalistic element. And so, I think in the United States, we've done a lot toward healing. And once, you make the effort to heal, then you can really begin celebrating the common history. Because even the people who are Seljuk, who are Gökturks, who are from a different, from Central Asia genetically or historically, they should celebrate the Hittite heritage of Turkey, the Aramaic, the Armenian, the Greek, the Lycian, the Lydian. Like there's so many amazing places, and there's so much history contained in those borders that can help define Turkey moving forward. And to me, it seems counterproductive to not deal with the history. Like even if there's an opposing opinion, let's say, I won't use the word denial. People can be upset about that. That's fine. But I want to take someone else's side for a minute and say, listen, there's a different interpretation of history, and we can talk about it together. And it's not a threat to anybody because it is the past. That's true. And we're all in this boat together. We all live together. And you know what? These places are amazing places that aren't like really, it's not just history of, let's say, the ancient Assyrians who were in what is geographically Turkey today, or the ancient Hittites, or the contemporary, indigenous peoples of all of the different shapes. Like, because it's so ancient, like that's foundational to the way in which much of our own civilization in the West developed. And we talk about it in passing, but we don't really celebrate it. And I think that's it's unfortunate. And there's just so much Turkey has to offer, on so many planes. It's really potentially it could be the jewel of that region, but for a number of factors, and I'm not a political scientist, so I don't know the full landscape of the way it is today. But I think that a different approach, even if it starts in disagreement, eventually it's going to get you to, well, this is the data. These are the stories. This is all, like, this is what we know. What do you want to do with it? And it may take a generation or two, hopefully not more than that, but you never know, to really come to terms with, this is a history. And just like I can celebrate the different peoples who came to colonize, whether they're the English, the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, the Russian, the United States, and the indigenous peoples who inhabited it before. That's all part of what generates my own history as an American. And I think that, Turkey is one of the few nations that can really relate to that. experience, because there's so many parallels across the board.
I agree with you. And Turkey, if Turkish leaders want to be count as a civilized country, I think they can learn from American story, Germans a lot. Let's be optimistic. I believe Turkey one day, maybe sooner or late, will face its history. It's not possible to hide the truth forever.
Where, with the way the world is today, I think sometimes when we in the West read about history, even if we're reading about World War II, we think it's over. And we think that those days are behind us. But I also want to caution people, just based on, our experience with the war in Syria and Iraq, that things that you don't think can happen, they might under the right, or let's just call them the wrong circumstances, right? What lessons can we take from the Seyfo? And, what can people who are listening who don't know anything about this region, they're from America, let's say, or Canada or Europe. What benefit is it to us to know about Seyfo, and what warnings?
I think this is very important question, that genocide didn't start 1915 and ended 1915. It happens in so many places. 1915, it was a genocide. 1933, Assyrians, they were killed in decimated, genocide in Iraq, the Holocaust, Rwanda genocide, Darfur, Cambodia, and many, many other places. 2014, it was what ISIS did toward the Yazidi people and Assyrians, Christians in Iraq and Syria also was a genocide. So when the circumstances allows the perpetrators, they can do it again and again. And I think it is genocide is not like Assyrian or Armenian responsibility to take awareness, to raise awareness about it. This is crimes against humanity. We all humans, regardless from which nation we are, we have to be aware. It can happen in America, it can happen again in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. And what can we do? We can educate people to respect each other, regardless their faith, language, and color, whatever they are, to respect each other, to live in peace and harmony together. If we try to solve problems with violation, it can harm a lot the society. And this is wrong. And there are early signals sometimes. And before genocide happened, maybe if the society is aware about the past in history, about history, when these signals are in the society, the genocide can stop. And this is your duty, my duty. We are obliged to raise awareness about not to take revenge from other people. And I feel like when I speak about the Assyrian genocide, I think Turks, Kurds, before they try to find any argument to be against me, they should open a window in their brain and say, what can we learn from this guy? It is for their benefit, because my people, they are killed, they are gone. Even if they want, they can bring them back. But to acknowledge the past, it helps them. They can be mature, they can build their democratic society, and like Germany, like Americans. And this is very important, I think. And let's educate each other.
Thanks so much for that. I think it's a great point. It's a human thing. And, the more we put labels on it, the more we distance ourselves from it. And the more we make it human, the more relevant it is to us. How can we, learn more about Seyfo Center, any activities that you have going on, or where can people go to learn just more about this period of our recent history?
Yeah, we have our website, seyfocenter.com, in English, Assyrian Genocide Research. And our website is in 4 different languages. We update in 4 different languages. It is in German, Swedish, Turkish, and English. And we publish books, and we do documentations, and also we do lobby. So far, there are 8 states of the United States that recognize the Assyrian genocide, and hopefully in the future there will be more. And we try to reach more people to recognize the Assyrian genocide. And next year, we are trying to organize a conference with the European Parliament, Swedish Parliament, at the Geneva, at the United Nations, and some universities. And every year we have Genocide Awareness Week in Arizona, Seyfo Center, State University of Arizona. They are doing together, bringing many scholars from different places and speak about different genocides. And we have social media, Seyfo Center Facebook pages, Twitter, Instagram. And please, if you are able to put the Seyfo Center website in your podcast, maybe people, they are welcome to ask questions, and we try to answer their questions. So it is one of the genocides that occurred during the First World War, but there is a lot to learn from the Assyrian genocide, Armenian genocide. And we have a lot to share.
Thank you. Well, Tade Ghalebe Ahuno, I'm so happy to have you come. I'm going to have you back there. I know you and I read a number of interesting things, and I think that, maybe another time we can talk about some of the stuff we're reading.
Oh, thank you, Sagi. And somebody was calling me, and I need to go to church.
Okay.
تبدي غلبي وفيش بشلومه.
زل بشلومه حنو.
Take
care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.